I welcome you to one of the most important and vital subject, marriage under Muslim law. Every relationship between a man and woman in Islam is sacred. The Muslim law gives importance to the institution of marriage. In this lesson, we will give an overview of Muslim marriage and will throw light on nature of Muslim marriage, capacity to marry, forms of marriage, and disabilities to marry. Islam reformed these old marriage laws in a sweeping and far-reaching way. The Holy Quran has laid the rules regarding the marriage as under: marry not the woman whom your father has or had married, for this is shameful and evil way. Forbidden to you are your mothers, your daughters, your sisters, your aunts, paternal and maternal, the daughters of your brothers and sisters, your foster mothers and foster sisters, the mother of your wives, the stepdaughters who are in your care, born of your wives, with whom you have had intercourse. But if you have not had intercourse with them, it is not a sin for you. And the wives of the sons who are your offsprings. Also, you cannot marry two sisters at the same time, except what is already past. Allah is gracious and merciful. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, prohibited all those various forms of marriage, except the one in which a dower was paid and the man asked the parents of the woman for her hand. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, declared that dower was due to the woman and is a symbol of the respect of a husband towards his wife. The consent of a woman in marriage was made essential. The wife was made a sharer in the property of her husband. In short, she was not to be treated henceforth as a chattel. Nature of Muslim marriage. We know that marriage in its primitive sense means carnal conjunction. Some have said that it signifies conjunction generally. In the legal sense of the term, it implies a particular contract for the purpose of legalizing generations. But marriage does not merely mean carnal conjunction. It is an institution. Marriage regulates the conduct of human beings. The institution of marriage is recognized by all civilized societies. The institution is highly desirable for the smooth and peaceful running of a society. Marriage regulates the conduct and behavior of men and women when they start living as husband and wife. The marriage confers a legal and social status with rights and responsibilities on the parties who enter into it. The object of marriage in Islam is to guard against foulness and unchastity. Islam recognizes the institution of marriage, usually termed as nikah. Islam condemns unchastity in emphatic terms and strictly prohibits the illicit relations. This institution of marriage has been ordained for the protection of society. The objects of Muslim marriage can be summarized as the restraint of sexual passion, the ordering of domestic life, the strengthening of family ties, the upbringing of virtuous children, the protection of piety of women. Now it is desirable to consider in detail the nature of Muslim marriage. Muslim marriage is not purely a civil contract. It is also ibadat, a devotional act. At the outset, it must be pointed out that while discussing the nature of Muslim marriage, its objectives must be kept in view. There is a popular misconception that no religious significance or social solemnity is attached to Muslim marriage and that it is a mere civil contract. Even Justice Mahmood says that marriage among Muhammadans is not a sacrament but purely a civil contract. Of course, Islam does not consider marriage as a sacrament in the religious sense of the term. However, the Prophet, peace be upon him, did describe nikah as his sunnah. As a matter of fact, it is only the form of marriage that is contractual and non-ceremonial. Marriage itself as concept is not merely a contract. The presence of the following elements determines its contractual character: proposal and acceptance, consideration, ante and post-nuptial agreements as in other contracts, alteration, modification or revocation of these ante and post-nuptial agreements, option of puberty and breach of contract. On the basis of these facts, Justice Mahmood, in the case of Abdul Qadir versus Salima had concluded that contract of marriage is similar to a contract of sale. But in the famous case of Anis Begum versus Muhammad Istifa, the Chief Justice Sir Shah Suleiman observed, marriage in Islam is not regarded as a mere civil contract but a religious sacrament. Further, the Muslim marriage is not merely a civil contract because, like a civil contract, it cannot be made contingent on a future event and it cannot be made for a limited time. Mutah marriage is an exception and not a rule. Meher or dower is not the same as consideration in a contract of sale. Though being contractual in form, the true nature of marriage is not confined to this aspect only. It is a devotional act as well. Some of the sayings of the Prophet, peace be upon him, may be considered in this connection. Piety and continence are the prime motives of marriage, which is essential for every Muslim. He who marries completes half his religion. It now rests with him to complete other half by leading a virtuous life in constant fear of God. There are three persons whom the Almighty Himself has undertaken to help: he who seeks to buy his freedom, he who marries with the view to secure his chastity, and he who gifts in the cause of Allah. In this context, Muslim marriage ceases to look as purely a civil contract or only a means to procreate children. Thus, in the words of Abdul Rahim, an Islamic jurist, the institution of marriage is partaking both of the nature of ibadat, that is devotional act, or muamalat, or dealings among men. In order to have a clear understanding of the institution of marriage in Islam, three aspects, which are also evident from the above discussion, must be considered. These are legal aspect, social aspect, and religious aspect. Legal aspect. Juristically, marriage is a contract and as such has three characteristics. There can be no marriage without consent. Provision is made for its breach. The terms of marriage contract are within legal limits capable of being altered to suit individual cases. Social aspect. In its social aspect, Islamic law gives a high status to women after marriage. Restrictions are placed upon unlimited polygamy as an instrument to maintain order in the society. Religious aspect. Quranic injunctions recognize in Islam marriage as the basis of society. It is a sacred covenant. It is the sunnah of Prophet, peace be upon him, socially enjoined. Prophet, peace be upon him, taught that nobility of character is the best reason for marrying a woman. Validity of marriage. The Gujarat High Court in Musmate Rahima Khatun versus Musmate Subarjanisa discussed the importance and validity of Muslim marriage as under. To constitute a valid marriage in Muhammadan law, it does not require to insist on any type of writing or any religious ceremony is essential. Even mullah is not needed. The presence of qazi at the time of contract between the parties can be dispensed with. The valid marriage may be contracted even though no ceremony is proved to have taken place between the parties. The presence of rituals of ceremony is immaterial and in no way affected the validity of the marriage. Having thus understood the nature of Muslim marriage, we would now discuss who can enter into a valid marriage contract. Capacity to marry. One can marry himself without a guardian if he is a Muslim of sound mind and who has attained puberty. In Islamic law, there are two basic attributes of legal competence to contract a marriage. Number one, sound mind, and number second, puberty. Puberty is a physical phenomena where a boy or a girl becomes capable of bearing children. In Muslim law, puberty and majority are one and the same. Islamic law has recognized the possibility of attaining puberty by a boy or a girl before the age of 15 years. The earliest age of puberty for a boy is generally 12 years and for a girl it is 9 years. Under Hanafi law, a girl of sound mind and having attained puberty can also freely marry personally and without the consent of her guardian. However, the consent of such boy or girl for his or her marriage must be obtained. Without it, the marriage will be void unless he or she satisfies it. Now we will consider the second category of such persons who are incompetent to marry freely and need the consent of a marriage guardian for that purpose. Under none of the schools of Muslim law can an insane person, male or female, major or minor, contract marriage without the consent and intervention of his or her marriage guardian. Furthermore, it may be pointed out that the marriage guardian of an insane person and of minor can contract such person's marriage with or without his or her consent. A peculiar feature of Muslim law of marriage that needs consideration here is option of puberty. We know that Muslim law recognizes the marriage of minors by their marriage guardians. A minor contracted in marriage by the guardian for marriage has the right to repudiate or ratify the marriage contract on attaining puberty. This right of the minor is known as option of puberty or khairul bulugh. Option of puberty is available in all cases where the marriage guardian other than father and grandfather contracted the marriage of the minor. Where the marriage was contracted by the father or grandfather, option of puberty is not available. But in exceptional cases, the option of puberty is available even where marriage was contracted by father or grandfather. Such exceptional circumstances are where the conduct of the marriage guardian was fraudulent or negligent, where an improper meher or dower was agreed upon, where the marriage is to the manifest disadvantage of the minor. However, by the dissolution of the Muslim Marriage Act 1939, the disability of the minor to exercise option of puberty in case his marriage guardian was father or grandfather has been removed. So far as the time of exercise of this option of puberty is concerned, the settled law is that in case a girl is aware of the marriage, she must exercise this right immediately on attaining puberty. Any unreasonable delay would deprive her of the right. But if she does not know that she has this right, it is prolonged until she is acquainted with the fact that she has such a right. The Dissolution of Muslim Marriage Act 1939 provides that she should exercise this option before attaining the age of 18 years. The option is lost if she, after having attained puberty, permits the marriage to be consummated. But mere consummation is not enough. It must be with wife's consent, with knowledge of her right. A male also has the same right. The option can be ratified on attaining puberty by express declaration, payment of meher, and cohabitation. Disabilities to marry. Having understood that who can enter into a valid marriage contract, we would now consider some limitations to the unfettered capacity of a Muslim to marry a person of opposite sex. A Muslim is prohibited to marry a person of opposite sex on the following grounds: number, religion, relationship, fosterage, unlawful conjunction, iddat, and miscellaneous prohibitions. We will now consider each of them separately. Number. A Muslim male may marry any number of wives, but he cannot have more than 4 wives at one time. However, marriage with 5th wife is not void but irregular. But a Muslim female cannot marry second time in presence of one husband. In case she marries second husband, she is liable for bigamy under section 494 of Indian Penal Code. But in the case, even Islamic law lays down that while marrying more than one wife, he has to be judicious with all the 4 wives and shall give same treatment to others. Religion. So far as inter-school marriages are concerned, Muslims belonging to different schools may intermarry freely with one another, and a mere difference of school of law, such as Shia or Sunni, Hanafi or Shafi, is entirely immaterial. On the other hand, difference of religion to a great extent works as a check on inter-religious marriages. A man in Hanafi law may marry a Muslim woman or Kitabiya, but a Muslim woman cannot marry anyone except a Muslim. Kitabiya means a woman believing in a revealed religion, possessing a divine book. Hanafiya law prohibits a man from marrying a fire worshipper or an idolatress. Under Shia law, marriage with a non-Muslim is unlawful, with only exception that some of the authorities of Isna Ashariya school held that a Muslim can contract mutta with a Kitabiya, including fire worshipper. Relationship. Restrictions under this category can be divided into 2, consanguinity and affinity. Consanguinity. A Muslim is prohibited to marry on the ground of blood relationship. Therefore, a Muslim cannot marry his mother or grandmother, his daughter or granddaughter, his sister, whether full or uterine, his niece or great niece, his aunt or great aunt, whether paternal or maternal. Marriage with a woman prohibited by blood relationship is totally void and issue illegitimate. Affinity. A man is prohibited from marrying certain relations by affinity. These are ascendants or descendants of his wife and the wife of any ascendant or descendant. Fosterage. A Muslim man cannot marry his foster mother, her daughter, or his foster sister. A marriage forbidden by reason of fosterage is void. Unlawful conjunction. A Muslim is forbidden to have two wives at the same time, so related to each other by consanguinity, affinity, or fosterage that they could not have lawfully intermarried with each other if they had been of different sexes. Thus, a man cannot marry two sisters or an aunt or her niece at the same time. Iddat. In Muslim law, when a marriage is dissolved by death or divorce, the woman is prohibited from marrying within a specified time. This period is called iddat. Observance of iddat is necessary both where the marriage has been consummated or where illicit intercourse has taken place without marriage. Miscellaneous prohibitions. There are some other prohibitions which need some consideration. Number 1. If a person has illicit intercourse with a woman or commits acts of undue familiarity, some of the woman's relations are forbidden to him, although he can marry the woman herself. Number 2. In Itna Ashariya and Shafila, a man who has come within the sacred precincts of the Kaaba and put on the pilgrim's dress may not enter into a contract of marriage while on the pilgrimage. Number 3. The divorce is not always a bar to remarry the same woman, but when a man divorces a woman and the divorce is effective as a remarriage between them is not allowed. However, if they want to remarry, the woman has to observe iddat lawfully, marry another husband, consummate the second marriage, and the second husband should lawfully and effectively divorce her. Thus we conclude that Muslim marriage is both a devotional act and by form a civil contract. Islamic law lays down detailed provisions about the capacity of a Muslim to marry and enumerates the various categories of women with whom marriage is prohibited. With these words, I conclude today's lecture and thank you.